Hey guys, Red91007, Billo29. We just said we weren't gonna do a hose review, but immediately I'm like, why the fuck not? A lot of people have been actually asking me to review the Nogoom hose because it is a fairly new product, and I have it. So here we go. I'm gonna compare it to two other hoses I currently have, which is the Fancy hose and the KM Rainbow hose. So if you just put the hose real quick, I'm just gonna take it out. Just to show you the length on this. It's well, let me just back up. Stand over here. You can see it's fairly long. We measured it. I have to fully extend my arms. It's over 6 feet, maybe 6.5 feet, I'd say. Compared to the Fancy hose, which is over here. It's so you can see. I'm just going to show you the difference in length here. So this is the end of the Fancy hose over here. So it's significantly longer, which I do like. And compared to the KM Rainbow hose, I'm pretty sure they're almost identical.
Rainbow hose, yeah, same thing.
Yeah, so it's maybe an inch. I'll show you guys up close. Here's the difference. Maybe an inch longer. Yeah, so a few things, just comparing it while I have the Rainbow hose that I really like about this. It's the hose port end. On the KM Rainbow, it has this long piece here. I guess it's cardboard, right? So sometimes when it's sticking out of the hookah, it's up like this. It's a hazard. You know, if you're at a party or something, people trip over it. And it also makes the actual length of the hose between the handles fairly short, which kind of bothers me because there's less mobility. On the Nogoom hose, it's just this end with the sweatband thing, right? So, and it has a lot of flexibility right here. When I first opened this out of the package, it was a fairly stiff hose. I hung it up overnight, and it's much better already. Right out of it, it had a very strong plastic taste. I washed it right away with lemon juice and water flowing through it. The first smoke we had, you could taste it. Second session, I smoked some mint, and already it's completely gone. What else should I say? Compared to the Fancy hose handle.
Very basic Fancy
Right.
hose.
Well, you guys know what a Fancy hose is, right? So here's the handle of the Fancy hose. You can see the difference in length right there. Significant. It's a much more comfortable hold. So back to the Nogoom specifically. One thing I really like about this is it has a removable tip. My other two hoses do not. It comes right out like this. If it comes out, it's in pretty tight. There you go. Anyway, the grommet inside seems to be much better than what I've heard about the Namor hoses. Doesn't seem like it's going to come out. It's very sturdy, and the reason I bought this hose really was so I can buy a crown mouth tip down the road. So yeah, it's removable. You can see this is the black and silver one, and it has that pattern going all along. I also bought a brown one for my cousin, which you guys saw in the unboxing video. The handle itself, one thing I do not really like about this is if you can see, it's hard to see on the texture on this camera, but it has this wrap going around the leather, or a synthetic leather, and it's kind of rough and not very smooth to the touch. That's the only thing I have against it, really. Whereas on the Rainbow hose, it's an extremely smooth, like I really enjoy holding this one. This one much less so. It has that a texture that's not as enjoyable.
Yeah. The thing is with it, it's mainly there kind of as an ornate factor or an aesthetical pleasing factor. It's also okay for control. Obviously, your hand's not going to slide up and down no matter how sweaty you are. You can kind of compare it to some people tape their hockey sticks all the way around. It's for, I guess, better grip. It's a little weird to kind of move up and down, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, that's really the only thing I don't like so far about this hose is just that feel. Like you said, it could be good. However, I'd rather it has a smooth feel like the Rainbow hose.
And with the fact that the ornateness goes all the way down,
yeah, it's nice.
Again, it looks nice. It's also really good, but also it creates a little stiffness on it, which will come out
it'll go
eventually.
away. Yeah,
it
over
will
time.
go away eventually as we use it more and more, but right now, as you can see, it's not the most malleable thing in the world.
I've had this for a day, not even 24 hours. I hung it up. It's already much more flexible. The plastic taste is completely gone. Yeah, if I had to pick the look of one of them, I prefer the look of the Rainbow hose. I think it's very intricate with the rainbow threading around it. However, this is a very nice one. It's just not as, I'd say, fancy, but it's just, you know, it's a bit of a different look.
Yeah. And the length of it obviously comes into play in regards to mobility when you're
Mhm.
smoking and all that type of stuff. As you said, it's a much longer hose when you come up to it
Yeah.
from this end to this end. Obviously, this being shorter is a really good factor because when we got that originally, we had the tiniest hookah in the world, and it created a lot of problems with tipping.
Yeah.
It was very, very easy to tip.
So in terms of the gauge, I will compare it to the KM. My camera's not very good, so I hope you guys can see this. But it's fairly similar. Looking at it myself, the KM looks to be just a tad, almost identical. Would you agree on that?
I would.
Just the gauge of the
gauge of
opening.
it, I would say it's a little bigger on the Nogoom home, just basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just because
No,
of...
I meant just the opening
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. Just basically because of the fact of this right here, the little glass-ish type of plasticky... Acrylic,
Yeah.
sorry. Part is a little longer on here compared to the actual gauge. So I would say it would be a little bigger. Nothing noticeable.
The size of the opening itself, though, they're almost identical. Now, compared to the Fancy Hose, just past the one in the back there, Fancy Hose, as many of you know, is one of the most wide open gauges. You can see here, if I get some better light, they are almost identical. Looking at it by my eyes, they look the same. Like, I'd say the Fancy is a little tad bigger, the same as the KM, but it's really unnoticeable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to smoke through my KM Rainbow because it's heavily ghosted and kind of nasty.
Mm-hmm. The big factor of being washable also is really, really good for Nogoom. We ghosted this really quickly, and we were smoking out of it with absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And we had some guy over here, I made him take a quick pull out of it for fun, and he almost puked.
Yeah, it's heavily ghosted. I might try and smoke some black leaf or some double apple out of this, otherwise it's ready for the garbage. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to just show you the smoke output and the pull on them, evaluate the openness of the draw. So let's just move back to our smoking position. We'll start with the Nogoom hose.
We're not using the Rainbow, right?
No.
Thank God.
Yeah, so just for reference, we're smoking Tangier's Cashmere Peach. In the review we are going to put up at the same time. I personally find it's a very wide open draw. Maybe a little bit less than the Fancy Hose. However, the gauge throughout the whole hose looks the same. It's really, really, like, I'm just being nitpicky. It's almost as wide open. You wouldn't notice if you weren't doing them side by side, I'd say.
It's a very slight restriction on it, but it's really, really nothing. Like it's hardly noticeable when you compare it to the Fancy Hose, which is obviously wide open. But again, that's very functional in its fact, and the fact that it's very basic, but this has a lot more key factors to it.
Yeah, I would consider this an extremely wide open hose. Great for smoking things with large clouds. The only thing I like more restriction is on my black leaf.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see, the pull on this and the way we're describing it is very wide open, and the smoke output's fairly good. Yeah, I'm gonna have to rotate the coals again soon. They're just dying down a little. I'm just gonna go ahead now and plug in Fancy Hose. Sorry, I might edit this. So this is getting cold. Alright, so on the Fancy Hose, immediately it's a lot shorter, lighter obviously, and I'd much enjoy the weight of the Nogoom hose and the Rainbow hose to the Fancy. However, the Fancy Hose is a fantastic, fantastic product.
Mm-hmm. We're not bashing it at all. It's just for comparison purposes. Again, obviously, as you said, it's obviously lighter. It's all plastic and everything like that. This has a little more weight to it, but it's a comfortable weight. It's nothing that'll weigh you down or cause any problems. It really fits nicely into your hand.
Yeah, you can see the smoke output is relatively the same, and I'm feeling the draw is, like I said, a tad more open, but if you weren't comparing them side by side, you wouldn't notice. The Nogoom is extremely wide open, extremely smooth pull. Actually, I'll pass this to you, take another pull. The Rainbow hose is also extremely wide open. It's just not washable. So, oh yeah, one more thing I wanted to mention about some packaging. The Fancy Hose is great. This came as a gift from 5 Star. It's a great packaging, completely sealed, very sanitary. I love the Fancy Hose packaging. The Nogoom hose came with these instructions on how to clean it. Maybe down the road I'll do a how-to video. It's very basic, but some people like deep cleaning their hoses, so I'll probably do a video on that at some point. And the KM I got didn't come in any packaging. Fancy hose is priced at about $5 most places. I think at 5 star it's either I think it's $4.99 for one or $3.99 for one. Sorry guys if I screw that up. I will put a link in the description. Very, very well priced. Great product. I absolutely love the Fancy hose. For the price point it's at, it's the best hose you can buy.
It's great for functional purposes.
Yeah.
That's mainly its function, what it serves. It's very basic, again, made out of not anything expensive or anything like that, but that's the purpose.
Right.
And it works well for what its use is.
If I had to rate the Fancy hose, for what it's intended for, it's a clear 10 on 10. It's a great product. You're expecting it. It's funny it's called the Fancy hose because it's really not very fancy at all. As long as you know you're not going to get the nicest looking hose, the most durable because it is plastic. For $5, it's amazing. 10 on 10 for that.
Yeah, we had a friend break one.
Yeah. The rainbow hose, I paid a little bit too much for mine. I paid $30 locally. They're much cheaper. I think in the $18, $19 range over at 5starhookah.com. Very good value for that. As long as you're dedicating that hose to a specific flavor or flavor family, like a mint or a black leaf, for example. And it's a fantastic hose. For its purpose, I'd also give it a 10 on 10. Now, these ratings it's not really going to make sense.
12 on 10 for the Nogoom.
Yeah, the Nogoom, I'm trying to rate this as fairly. The only flaw I find is the handle isn't completely smooth, but just pass me this tip. There's no glue marks. Like you can see there, if you move down the scrunchies, you don't really see any glue, maybe a little bit, but it's very, very clean and very well done. As opposed to the rainbow hose. So it's not really a big deal, but that's definitely a good point for the Nogoom. The only flaw I said is the handle. It's just not as comfortable to hold. If I had to give this rating, I'd probably say a 9 or a 9.5, just based on that. But in terms of its function, 10 on 10. It's washable and seems to be holding up great for the time I've washed it and smoked it for the past 24 hours. It held up so far. I'm sure it's going to last for quite a while. The only reason I'm taking off points, like I said, is the handle's not super comfortable for me.
Just bear in mind we're being nitpicky just for the sake of the review. To be honest, it's just an awesome hose. You can't deny the washable factor. You can't deny the gauge. You can't deny anything. It's a great hose.
In my opinion, these three hoses are some of the best you can buy for their purposes. They all serve very different purposes. Like I said, the Fancy hose is a great cheap hose. It won't last you too long. I've had mine going for like 3 months now, very strong. I'm expecting them to last maybe a year before they break. They'll smoke well until they break, and they're completely washable. That's why those are great. The KM Rainbow hose is a great hose for a non-washable hose, wide open draw, very comfortable, very nice looking. That's why I like that one. And the Nogoom, I love it because of the removable mouth tip. The overall length of the hose is very nice. It's not putting too much weight on the hookah, and it smokes absolutely amazing. They all smoke great. So, like I said, if you're looking for a cheap hose, go Fancy. If you're looking for a non-washable, KM Rainbow, unless you want to go up to like an Elmas hose, which are like $50. That's also a fantastic hose I've yet to try, wrapped in goat leather, which is pretty cool. It's really tough to say. You can't go wrong with any of these hoses as long as you know what you're getting when you buy them.
Mm-hmm. If you're going for something obviously above a Fancy hose, obviously very good functionally. But if you're going to bump up obviously for something that's a little more aesthetically pleasing, or something a little longer, something that's good for the function, get it.
Now, comparing the Nogoom really quickly, I know this video is getting very long. Comparing it to a Namor hose or a Razan hose, a Narbish hose, I think it definitely ranks up there. The new Namors, from what I understand, the quality of them is going downhill. And this is, I'm pretty sure it's actually made in the same factory as the Namors. And it seems to be made with a bit higher quality. So instead of getting a Namor, check out a Nogoom. It's a bit different in terms of style from a Narbish, for example, with the 2 sweatbands. When it gets to that point, it's really based on your personal preference in the looks and the style of the hose. But I highly recommend the Nogoom hose if you're looking for a good washable open draw hose. I don't want this to go any longer, so if you guys do have any further questions, you can comment on my YouTube page where this video is posted. It's Billo91007 over at hookahpro.com. Redwing91007, comment there, send me a PM on the site. However you want. If you have any questions, we'd both be very happy to answer anything you have. From what I understand, 5 Star is one of the only vendors right now that has these hoses, and they're priced at $25, which is very, very competitive with the other one.
It's a fair price for something that is definitely washable and something that can be used over a decent period of time.
Yeah.
It's not something that'll fall apart.
Right. I'm hoping to have this hose for a very long time. On that note, we're going to end this video. Like I said, questions, hit us up. Happy to answer. Check it out. Check out Tangier's Cashmere Peach. Good stuff. And yeah, that's all we got for you guys tonight. So check out hookahpro.com, your ultimate source for everything hookah. And